Hi, Prabindh Sundareson here again. We are at the end of day one of the ICCE-Asia 2017. We have just finished the banquet keynote by Mr. Bob Frankston, IEEE Fellow, and inventor of the VisiCalc spreadsheet program, who's here with us today. Bob, you spoke a lot about how the individual operations and individual hacking and the electronics engineering from grounds up helps the overall cost of society, and how it really helps in the growth of technology. What do you think about how we can utilize in countries in the Asian scenario?
Well, I mean, there's nothing particularly any country. I mean, this is, I mean, there's a lot of educated people who know how to use technology, a lot of excitement, so I don't see it that different. In the Asian countries, I think what might be different is, if you make the technology available for new purposes, such as in villages, more agricultural, where in the first world we're used to companies have a high profit margin doing it. And I think the technology is now becoming democratized. So the example is crop management. I was speaking to somebody here who's doing an Arduino project to manage crops. So I think that's the main difference, is that a lot of these technologies are becoming a lot more accessible.
Bob, you mentioned one slide about the APIs, the application programming interfaces. So one of the points that comes about is if we standardize on the APIs, then the underlying hardware doesn't make a difference.
Yes.
How then do companies make profit?
Well, that's what I call Foxconn economics. Foxconn still makes a profit, doesn't make as much as Apple does, but they still make a profit. But you have to adjust your company for that. I think this is one of the issues people have. And in some cases, how does society, like a subway system, does not make a profit? But we understand that it's vital, so we find a business model, make it happen. So the customer for a subway is the city as a whole, is not the individual. Now, cities tend to charge people for that for a couple of reasons. One, they don't appreciate the value. It's a way of controlling, a way of getting some of the revenue back. But ultimately, we've got to recognize that we need this technology for society, and maybe some of it, tax credits, maybe encourage people to do it, or just accept that it's doable with a small margin. I mean, there's some industries, we still get I'm amazed we still get television, LCD screens, when that's a negative return on value business. Unfortunately, they sometimes make the money by spying on us, but the hard part is getting people to see the value. I mean, there's an interesting history of highways. People used to try to make money with toll roads by saying the roads had to pay for themselves. It took a long time to realize, no, there's too much value. They can't limit it to for-profit highways.
Right. Bob,
the short answer is, I don't have an easy answer, but we need it.
Great. So switching to another context. So Bob, you have attended many conferences, many ICC events, and so on. What do you think is unique about this conference that's held in Bangalore for the first time?
Well, I think it basically exposed a lot of the local talent to technology, which especially in Bangalore is important. So I think getting, people to meet each other and associate, with the larger IEEE is important.
From a consumer electronic society perspective, how do you see the role of the individual engineer as opposed to large corporations, for example?
Well, I'm biased because I'm an individual engineer. No, I think it's a combination of both, because there starts where individuals take the risk. Large corporations can tend to take risks too and invest. So a lot of the point technologies do come from those corporations, but they're often tied to their purpose. So the question is, how do we make them more available? Like you asked the question about the phones, how do we find that balance? I think, again, people worry about individuals being large companies will take over what they're doing. Well, it works both ways. Individuals can now implement the technology themselves. So hopefully we're going to maintain sort of a healthy balance there.
Thank you, Bob. What we are realizing after a lot of discussions is individual engineers can make a lot of difference to technology, which can potentially be picked up by other companies and make a difference to the world.
They can also make a difference. I mean, just because you're in a company doesn't mean you can't be entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. So, companies that really can embrace new ideas benefit versus those that have a top-down approach.
Yes. So that's a good summary, Bob. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the next session. Thank you.